The story of the prophet Jeremiah, a narrative retelling. Before the world knew his name, before his voice ever echoed through the streets of Jerusalem, Jeremiah was known by God. Not just known, chosen, crafted, and set apart. His life was written into the fabric of divine purpose long before he took his first breath. This is not simply the biography of a prophet. It is the story of a man who walked through fire, not to be destroyed, but to illuminate the truth for generations to come. The boy who heard God's voice. Jeremiah grew up in a quiet village called Anathoth, far from the noise of the palace, far from the crowds of the temple courts. He was just a young man, learning the routines of life when everything changed in an instant. One day the voice of God broke through the ordinary. It wasn't thunder, it wasn't wind. It was a whisper that shook the very core of his being. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Jeremiah trembled. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't a priest. He wasn't even confident in his own words. "Lord, I'm too young," he protested. But God answered with gentle authority, "Do not say I am too young. You must go wherever I send you. Do not be afraid, for I am with you." Then God reached out, not physically, but spiritually, and touched Jeremiah's mouth. And just like that, the calling began. The prophet nobody wanted to hear. Jeremiah's first steps as a prophet were not met with applause. The kingdom of Judah was thriving, outwardly at least. Markets were busy, families were settled, religious festivals were full. But beneath the surface, the heart of the nation was drifting far from God. Idols stood in the high places, corruption filled the courts. Leaders used God's name but ignored his commands. Jeremiah carried a message that pierced their comfort. Turn back to God before destruction comes. But the people refused. They laughed, they mocked, they rolled their eyes at his warnings. To them, Jeremiah was dramatic, extreme, unnecessary. But to God, Jeremiah was faithful. A lonely path. The more Jeremiah spoke, the more resistance he faced. Religious leaders accused him of blasphemy. Prophets claimed he was lying. Kings threw him into prison. Friends abandoned him. Once, when he dictated God's warning onto a scroll, King Jehoiakim sliced it apart with a knife and burned it piece by piece. Imagine that. Your life's work, your obedience, your tears turned to ash. Still, Jeremiah wrote again. Still he spoke. Still he obeyed, because inside him burned a fire he could not extinguish. His word is like fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot. Jeremiah wasn't strong because he felt brave. He was strong because he couldn't walk away from the God who called him. The broken-hearted prophet Jeremiah is remembered as the weeping prophet, not because he was weak, but because he loved deeply. He cried for his nation. He cried for the stubbornness of the people. He cried because he felt God's own heartbreak. His tears were not for himself. They were for a people who could not see the danger ahead. Through Jeremiah, God pleaded, "Return to me. Break up the hardness of your heart. Stop chasing worthless idols." This was not the anger of a distant deity. It was the grief of a father watching his children run toward destruction. The fall of a nation. The warnings grew louder. The signs became clearer. But the people's ears remained closed. And so the day finally came. Babylon marched into Judah with iron fists and burning torches. Soldiers flooded the streets. Families were torn apart. The walls of Jerusalem shook beneath the roar of destruction. Jeremiah watched from the city gates as fire touched the temple, the very place where the people once said, "God will never let harm come to us." The city fell. The nation was taken captive. The prophet's deepest fears became reality. But in the darkest moment of Judah's history, God gave Jeremiah a message of breathtaking hope. The promise that still speaks today. While the people wept in exile, Jeremiah declared words that would echo through centuries. For I know the plans I have for you, plans for peace, not disaster, plans to give you a future and a hope. Even in judgment, God was weaving redemption. Jeremiah spoke of a restored land, a renewed people, a new covenant written not on stone but on hearts, a Savior who would come and transform the world. Jeremiah didn't just see destruction, he saw resurrection. He didn't just warn, he promised. He didn't just speak judgment, he delivered hope. The legacy that lives on Jeremiah never gained popularity. He never became wealthy. He never lived a comfortable life. But he remained faithful, and thousands of years later, his story still stands as a call to courage. His life teaches us, stand firm even when you stand alone. Truth is powerful even when it is unpopular. Obedience matters more than applause. God's plans always lead to redemption. Jeremiah walked through seasons of loneliness, rejection, fear, and heartbreak, but he never walked alone. The God who called him in his youth carried him through every trial. A message for this generation. Like Jeremiah's world, ours is filled with noise. Voices that distract, voices that deceive, voices that pull hearts away from God. But God is still calling people, just as he called Jeremiah, to stand firm, to speak truth, to live boldly. The story of Jeremiah is not an ancient tale, it is a mirror for our time, and it whispers to every heart willing to listen, return to God, stand in truth, walk in courage, trust his plan. He is not finished with you yet. Epilogue. The fire still burns. Jeremiah leaves behind no monuments, no royal titles, no earthly achievements, but he leaves behind something far greater, a voice that still burns, a message that still convicts, a hope that still restores. And his story reminds us that the greatest victories are not won in the applause of crowds, but in the quiet places where a heart chooses to obey God, no matter the cost. This is the story of Jeremiah, the prophet with tears in his eyes and fire in his bones.